Most businesses that fail get demolished, sold off, or quietly forgotten. Theme parks are different. When a theme park dies, it tends to die in place, leaving roller coasters standing in fields, Ferris wheels rusting against the sky, and entire midways slowly disappearing under vines and trees while nobody bothers to clean it up. These are 10 American theme parks that closed and were left to ROT. Number 10, Chippewa Lake Park, Ohio. Chippewa Lake Park opened in 1878 as a simple picnic and swimming spot before gradually growing into a full amusement park over the following century, eventually featuring 3 roller coasters, a Ferris wheel, a carousel, and a dance hall that hosted live bands almost nightly. The park managed to survive an entire century of changing American tastes before finally closing in 1978, its centennial season, unable to compete with the much larger Cedar Point and Geauga Lake nearby. What happened next is what makes Chippewa Lake genuinely unusual. Rather than being demolished, the park was simply abandoned in place. 16 original rides sat untouched for decades, and while fires eventually consumed the ballroom, hotel, and arcade, 4 structures survived completely intact, slowly swallowed by the forest growing up around them. The site's most photographed image became the skeletal frame of the abandoned Ferris wheel, with a tree that grew directly through its center for years before eventually being cut down. The wheel still stands today, exposed to the weather, a popular subject for photographers, and one of the most recognizable abandoned amusement rides in the entire country. Number 9, Rocky Point Park, Rhode Island. Rocky Point began in the 1840s as a simple waterfront picnic destination before growing into one of New England's most significant amusement parks, eventually drawing crowds large enough that local railway authorities built dedicated train tracks directly to the property. By 1900, the New York Times was describing it as the Coney Island of Rhode Island. The park hosted presidents, debuted Charles Luf's Ferris wheel, and became a defining piece of summer for generations of New Englanders before financial mismanagement forced its parent company into bankruptcy and the park closed for good in 1995. For more than a decade afterward, Rocky Point sat exactly as it had been left, its rides rusting, its Skyliner roller coaster standing empty against the Narragansett Bay shoreline, becoming a magnet for vandals and urban explorers who documented the decay before demolition crews finally began clearing the site in 2007. Number 8, Six Flags, New Orleans. This park opened in 2000 as Jazzland, was acquired by Six Flags in 2003 after $20 million in upgrades, and then closed permanently just 2 years later when Hurricane Katrina's floodwaters submerged the entire 227-acre property under up to 7 feet of water for over a month. Six Flags declared it a total insurance loss, attempted to recover $150 million from insurers who had specifically excluded flood damage from their policies, and walked away entirely. What remained became one of the most photographed abandoned sites in America. The wooden Mega Zeph roller coaster, modeled after a ride from a previous New Orleans amusement park, still juts out of the landscape like the bones of some extinct creature. Faded Looney Tunes characters peer out from collapsing concession stands. Alligators and wild boar now live on the property. For nearly 2 decades, redevelopment plans came and went without ever materializing, and the site was used as a filming location for movies including Jurassic World, a detail that feels almost too on the nose. Demolition finally began in late 2024, nearly 20 years after the storm, with the park's largest roller coaster torn down in February of 2025. Number 7, Joyland, Wichita, Kansas. Joyland opened in 1949 and operated continuously for more than 5 decades, becoming the largest amusement park in central Kansas and a defining piece of childhood for generations of Wichita families, anchored by a wooden roller coaster locals called the Nightmare. Financial struggles forced the park to close permanently in 2006, and what followed was one of the more violent decay stories on this list. Rather than simply rusting quietly, Joyland was repeatedly hit by fires. A 2012 blaze damaged a maintenance building. A 2018 fire destroyed the park's beloved Wacky Shack, one of only 2 such rides remaining in the entire country. The fires haven't stopped. As recently as this year, crews were still responding to brush fires breaking out across the overgrown property 2 decades after the gates closed for good, burning through what little remains of a park that vandalism, theft, and time had already nearly erased. Number 6, Williams Grove Amusement Park, Pennsylvania. Williams Grove traces its origins back to 1850, when a family began hosting picnics on a small grove of land near Mechanicsburg, eventually developing the property into a full amusement park that operated continuously for over a century and a half. The park finally closed in September of 2005, and what makes Williams Grove distinctive among abandoned parks is just how much survived intact. Unlike sites picked apart by fire or auctioned off piece by piece, large portions of Williams Grove's 27 attractions, including 3 roller coasters, remained standing for years after closure, frozen in place and visible to anyone willing to walk the overgrown grounds. The site briefly reopened for a single Halloween haunted attraction in 2016, guiding visitors past its own real decay rather than artificial scares before returning to its quiet, slow collapse. Number 5, Geauga Lake, Ohio. Geauga Lake's story is one of the strangest boom and bust arcs in American theme park history. Established in 1887 as a simple lakeside recreation spot, it grew over more than a century into a genuine regional powerhouse, eventually merging with the neighboring SeaWorld, Ohio in 2001 to create a single combined property covering over 550 acres, briefly making it one of the largest amusement parks on the planet. Six Flags sold the park to Cedar Fair in 2004, and just 3 years later, in September 2007, the dry rides closed permanently while only the water park portion limped along. The roller coasters were left standing where they'd operated for years, towering over an increasingly empty property that locals began comparing to a zombie movie set. The water park finally closed too in 2016, ending the saga entirely. But for nearly a decade, Geauga Lake existed in a strange, suspended state, half demolished, half abandoned, neither fully alive nor fully gone. Number 4, Heritage USA, Fort Mill, South Carolina. Heritage USA was built by televangelists Jim and Tammy Faye Backer as a Christian version of Disneyland, and at its peak in the 1980s, it was genuinely the 3rd most visited theme park in America, behind only Disney World and Disneyland, drawing nearly 6 million visitors annually across 2,300 acres that included a water park, a recreated Main Street, and a 21-story hotel tower. The park's signature moment came in 1987, when fellow televangelist Jerry Falwell rode the park's 163-foot Typhoon waterslide fully dressed in a suit, fulfilling a fundraising pledge during the very scandal that would soon destroy the ministry entirely. Jim Bakker was revealed to have used church funds to cover up an affair and was eventually convicted of fraud, and Heritage USA collapsed into bankruptcy in 1989. Hurricane Hugo finished what the scandal started later that same year. Most of the property was eventually sold off and redeveloped into townhouses, but for years the park's most infamous structure, a fairy tale castle that once housed a Christian arcade and go-kart track, stood completely abandoned on a hill overlooking the new neighborhoods built around it, a relic so strange that it wasn't finally demolished until 2013. Number 3. Hard Rock Park, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hard Rock Park opened in 2008 as one of the most expensive and ambitious theme park launches in American history, built around a music theme with rides themed to classic rock songs. The timing could not have been worse. The park opened directly into the 2008 financial crisis, filed for bankruptcy within months, and briefly attempted a relaunch under the name Freestyle Music Park before failing again almost immediately. What followed was over a decade of complete abandonment. The park's offices sat with broken windows and overgrown landscaping for more than 10 years, visible from a major Myrtle Beach parkway as a strange, sprawling monument to one of the fastest theme park collapses in modern American history. A multi-hundred-million-dollar investment reduced to rubble and rust in under 2 years of actual operation. Number 2. Action Park successor sites and the broader Northeast collapse, represented here by Holy Land USA, Waterbury, Connecticut. Holy Land USA opened in the 1950s as a religious theme park built around recreated biblical scenes, complete with a massive illuminated cross visible across the Waterbury skyline, and at its peak drew, researchers estimate, around 40,000 visitors annually who came to walk through scaled recreations of Bethlehem and Jerusalem. The park closed to the public in 1984, and unlike most entries on this list, nobody ever demolished it or redeveloped the land. The biblical structures, hand-built dioramas, and religious statuary simply sat there, untouched and decaying for over 3 decades. Urban explorers documented crumbling plaster figures and collapsing miniature villages reclaimed by Connecticut forest, a strange, half-religious ruin hiding in plain sight above a major American city, eventually becoming one of the most written about abandoned sites in the entire Northeast. Number 1. Six Flags Astroworld, Houston, Texas. Astroworld opened in 1968 next to the Houston Astrodome and grew into one of the most beloved regional theme parks in the American South, eventually drawing millions of visitors annually and serving as a default summer destination for an entire generation of Texas families. Six Flags acquired the park in 1975 and operated it for 3 decades before making the announcement that shocked Houston in 2005. Astroworld would close permanently at the end of that season, with the company citing rising land values and declining attendance. The closure happened fast, and unlike parks that lingered abandoned for years, Astroworld was demolished almost immediately, with most structures torn down by 2006, the land converted into a parking lot for the neighboring stadium complex. What makes Astroworld's inclusion here different from the rest of this list is the sheer speed of the erasure. One year it was a fully operating theme park with roller coasters and water rides. The next, almost nothing physical remained at all, leaving behind nothing but photographs and the memories of everyone who grew up believing it would always be there.